Hello everyone, today is 1st of May, now it's 10 past 10 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. Although before I start, let me make an announcement that today evening 9 o'clock Moscow time I will have a live stream. Additional live stream to programming. So from now on I will try, if there is no technical issues, to have two live streams on Wednesdays 9 o'clock evening time and on Sundays 9 o'clock at evening. So well, hopefully this additional live stream will play its positive role to further develop this channel. And after all, it's a good opportunity to have an exchange of opinions in real time. If I receive any questions, by the way, through Boosty, PayPal, or Patreon, or during the live stream itself through Donation Alert platform, of course, I will try my best to give you an informative answer. In any ways, I will be actively engaged with community, and if I see questions in the chat, I will definitely try to answer. All the difference is, of course, that if I receive question through with donation through Boosty, PayPal, or Patreon, then I will be obligated to answer. When chat is little different, I will try to answer to the questions if I see them, but if I not, then please don't be mad at me. Anyway, let's talk about news now. And first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield, and we have additional confirmations that Russian armed forces established control over the Rabotina settlement in Zaporozhye sector in Rafah bridgehead. Some channels, some big channels, still are doubting this information, and according to some channels, Russian forces are controlling vast parts of the settlement, but there are some areas that is in gray zone. I have a different reading of the situation based on information from open sources. Russian side clearly established control over the settlement. Now the mining process most likely will take place, some clearing operation, and tomorrow or day after, most likely Russian Defense Ministry will make a statement about liberation of the Rabotina, maybe even today, later on. Let's see. So it's a big deal, by the way. It's a big deal. First of all, in terms of optics, media optics, for example, because after all, during this so-called spring-summer offensive of Kyiv regime in 2023, only settlement they managed to establish control over is Rabotina in Zaporozhye sector of the front line, and they lost it. When it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, Russian forces increasing pressure on Kyiv regime units in Vremyovsky salient area, and to be more precise, towards Urozhaynaya Staromayorskaya. And according to some videos that are circulating on internet, some reports, Russian armed forces already established foothold in Urozhaynaya, and most likely in next couple of weeks, Russian side will re-establish control over these settlements on Vremyovsky salient area, Urozhaynaya, Staromayorskaya, Blagodatnaya, Starozhivoye, Makarovka. There is a few settlements there on Vremyovsky salient, over which Kyiv regime managed to establish control during this so-called spring-summer offensive in 2023. And I guess it's only a matter of weeks and Russian forces will regain control over, at least over the Urozhaynaya, Staromayorskaya. It all depends, of course, what kind of plans Russian Defense Ministry has. Also, by the way, when it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, Russian long-range artillery, Russian Air Force are constantly pounding points of concentration of Kyiv regime forces in Ugledar city itself and surrounding areas, and some military experts even expecting Russian offensive towards Ugledar, although I have a little bit different reading of the situation. I think it will make more sense to basically conduct pincer offensive from Vremovsky salient area and from Novomikhailovka, Marinka area, and basically to encircle not just Ugledar, but entire South Donetsk sector. That will make more sense, but yet again, I'm no military expert, so how should I know? When it comes to Donetsk sector of the front line, main hotspot is of course Krasnogorovka, and Russian forces further increasing pressure on Ukrainian units. We did not receive any information on some crucial changes on the line of contact, but initiative definitely is in Russian hands, and on daily basis Russian army is improving their positions. In Avdiivka direction, main hotspot is of course still Ocheretino direction. After Ocheretino become under full Russian control and Solovyovo, we're receiving reports now that Russian forces advancing towards Sokol on the southern western side of Ocheretino, and also towards Novo-Alexandrovka on the northern western part side of the Ocheretino. And yesterday on one of the big Telegram channels I saw information that forward units of Russian army are just about 500 to 700 meters away from Novo-Alexandrovka. In previous days, some channels even reported that forward units of Russian forces entered this settlement. In any ways, of course, initiative is in Russian hands, and despite attempts and deployments of reserves by Kyiv regime towards Avdiivka sector, they are unable to stabilize line of contact and to hold on to their defensive positions. Whenever Russian army is increasing pressure and conducting local scale offensive operations, Kyiv regime's defense lines are collapsing, cracking and collapsing. On the northern flank of the Donetsk sector, main hotspot is of course Chisov Yar, and Russian armed forces conducting flanking operations in direction of Chisov Yar. On the northern flank of city, Russian forces reach channel, reach a water channel that divides city in two parts, and most likely we will see similar operation from the northern side, and Russian forces in upcoming days probably will conduct offensive operations towards Kalinina to reach channel in this direction also. And meanwhile, of course, Russian military intelligence is working actively, and whenever points of concentration of Kyiv regime's manpower and military equipment is located in a city, missile and artillery strikes are conducted, air strikes. So there is no area in the Chisov Yar that is safe for the Kyiv regime forces right now, and it's a huge, according to many channels, Kyiv regime deployed huge number of its reserves in Chisov Yar, well, it's gonna be another meat grinder, by the way. It's gonna be another meat grinder if Kyiv regime forces will continue obey orders from Zelensky and his criminal associates. They're gonna lose an additional couple of brigades at least in Chisov Yar, because I mean, can anybody have any doubts that Russian forces will establish control over the Chisov Yar? No. Russian forces will establish control not just over the Chisov Yar, but over the entire Ukraine, with the exception of western regions of Ukraine, because Russia has no interest in western regions of Ukraine. And that's the only reason, by the way. At least that's my reading of their big picture. Anyway, this is it when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. I remind you, dear friends, that military channels are providing us with a great volume of more detailed information about these local scale skirmishes, artillery duels, drone wars, and so on. And if by chance you are new to independent media on internet and are not familiar with the military channels, under this video in description box I have a recommendation list, and with the links, by the way, and you can definitely find there at least several military channels, by the way. So yes, that's been said, let's continue with some additional news now. And RIA Novosti is reporting that yesterday late evening Russian armed forces conducted a missile strike on headquarters of Kyiv regime's forces in Odessa, headquarters of the of the southern group of forces of the Kiev regime, and according to local pro-Russian underground or Russian partisans, strike was very precise. There were several explosions as a result of this strike that happened in the central parts of the city. Headquarters was destroyed, and I guess Kiev regime suffered a significant number of losses in manpower, and including most likely high-ranking military officials. I would not be surprised at all if we will learn that another bunch of foreign mercenaries have been neutralized during this strike. Let's see what kind of additional information will become available about this strike during the day, but I would not be surprised at all if we will learn that as a result of these strikes, dozens of British mercenaries or English-speaking mercenaries and dozens of French-speaking mercenaries have been neutralized. Anyway, let's continue. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that White House, US leadership basically, is refusing to acknowledge that Russian air defense systems effectively dealing with the ATACMS long-range missiles that have been delivered to Kiev regime in March by Pentagon. More than 100 of those missiles have been transferred to Kiev, according to Western media outlets. And, well, White House may deny whatever they want, but Russian Defense Ministry reported yesterday that 6 ATACMS missiles were neutralized. And the day before, there was a report about 5 destroyed ATACMS missiles. So Kiev regime is actively using its stock of this type of missiles to strike, first of all, towards Crimea. It is possible that Kiev regime and their Western masters will try to conduct strikes towards Crimea Bridge also. It is a possibility because they have some obsession with Crimea Bridge, by the way. I don't really get it. I don't understand why, because from military standpoint, even if they will damage Crimean Bridge, it will change nothing at all. Because, I mean, just take a look at the map, by the way. This is land bridge that Russia has towards Crimea. And there is a Crimean Bridge here. I mean, come on now. Even if Western ruling class and the Kiev regime, even if they manage to damage Crimea Bridge, what difference, strategically speaking, that will make? None, absolutely none. But still, they have obsession. By the way, I don't understand why. What is wrong with them? And therefore, they may waste a bunch of those ATACMS missiles and other weapon systems, by the way, naval drones and so on, to conduct strikes towards Crimean Bridge. They are sick. That's all, and therefore, normal individual hardly be able to understand those sick people, man, in the leadership of modern Ukraine and the Western world. That's all. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, I already said this. Also, by the way, authorities in Crimea yesterday warned local residents to be very cautious, because as a result of destruction of ATACMS missiles by Russian air defense systems, cluster munitions have been spread in certain areas, because it seems like these ATACMS missiles had cluster warheads, and local residents have been warned that if they see something that resembles cluster munition or whatever they will see that is not belongs to that area, to be cautious, not to touch it, because it is dangerous. Of course it is dangerous, and of course it will take quite a long time to clean up all that mess that will be left after this conflict will end on the ground as a result of unexploded these cluster munitions and mines and so on, all along the line of contact, by the way, of course. Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that, well, according to experts of Good Zone University in US, Russian radioelectronic warfare system is so effective that certain weapon systems that Kiev regime received from West, from collective West or from NATO, have been basically neutralized, almost completely. And for example, Excalibur guided weapon system, guided artillery shell, effectiveness of this weapon dropped from 70 to 6% as a result of effective use of effectiveness of Russian radioelectronic warfare systems. A few days ago, I read an article that other precisely guided weapon systems have been also neutralized by radioelectronic warfare system of the Russian Federation, mainly because, as I understand, these weapon systems are using GPS navigation, and Russian side is actively jamming those weapon systems. Not just GPS, but whatever navigation system they are using. And therefore, significant number of those weapon systems that cost a fortune, by the way, become useless on the battlefield. TASS news agency is reporting that, according to Wall Street Journal, Kiev regime is experiencing nightmare when it comes to logistics, because NATO member states transferred to Kiev regime some 200 different type of weapon systems, and I mean, you can imagine how long, how time consuming it's gonna be to find the spare parts for all those tens and hundreds of different type of vehicles and weapon systems and so on. And simultaneously, by the way, I was kind of surprised to hear this, but the Wall Street Journal is reporting that even if weapon systems that NATO is delivered seems to be unified and similar, it's not really the case. For example, 155 millimeter howitzers. This is a standard caliber for the NATO, and the US is M777 howitzer, French Caesar howitzer, German howitzers, British howitzers. They all are using 155 millimeter caliber shells. Although, by the way, those shells are not compatible to all guns. To all guns. So one unit of Kiev regime may receive French Caesar howitzer, for example, and shells from M777, and they would not be able to, and shells from US, let's say, and they would not be able to use those shells for this Caesar howitzer. And some other unit may receive M777 and receive shells that are produced in France for Caesars, and they would not be able to use those shells, and it does make confuse Kiev regime forces. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I was a little bit surprised to hear this, because I mean, it seems logical to unify technological processes of production of those shells, because if it's 150 millimeter caliber, then it should be compatible to all these caliber guns. But this is not the case. This is not the case. So, well, good to know, by the way. I'm not gonna lie. I like this news. Good to know that Kiev regime and their Western masters experiencing logistical nightmare when it comes to weapons and weapon systems. Good news. Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that Elon Musk, by the way, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, once again commented on Ukrainian crisis, and he said that, well, for him personally, there is only one question remains: will Russia establish control over the Odessa or not? That's a question that he has. While, if you ask me, dear friends, I have a different question. I don't have questions about Odessa. I'm 100% sure that Odessa, as a Russian city, will join Russia, will be liberated from these neo-Nazis and terrorists that are running modern Ukraine. So Odessa will, of course, Odessa region will, of course, become part of Russia, will be liberated. There can be no doubts about it. But question that I have is about Kiev. That's the only question I have, by the way. And I tell you why. I tell you why, by the way. So I spoke many times about this map that was used as a background when former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, was giving a speech during this Knowledge Society's marathon about months ago or 2 months ago, relatively recently. And this is the map that was displayed on the background of Medvedev when he was giving his speech. And if we take a look at this map, I mean, we can see that Ukraine, modern Ukraine, as we know, it is divided between its neighbors, mainly. So from Kharkov to Odessa region, everything is controlled by Russia, is part of Russia. And the western regions of Ukraine, from Lvov to Zhytomyr, is, at least on this map, is a part of Poland. Several areas of Ukraine, Cherkasy, for example, and Vinnytsia regions are as a part of displayed as a part of Romania, and Transcarpathia as a part of Hungary. And from Ukraine, by the way, what remains on this map is just Kiev and surrounding areas, Kiev and Kiev region. And that's the only question that I have. What will happen with Kiev and the Kiev region? Will Moscow allow Kiev and surrounding areas to remain on the political map as a landlocked quasi-state or not? Or Kiev will be also liberated and Kiev region by Russian forces? That's the only question I have. But when it comes to Odessa, how you can doubt that Odessa will be liberated, by the way, by Russia? There can be no doubts about it. But, you know, it is a question for Musk. It is a question for Musk. Maybe he knows something that I don't. Who knows? Who knows? But as I said, to me, only question remains: will Ukraine will maintain its presence on political map as a landlocked quasi-state with the Kiev and surrounding areas, or not? Or it will be fully divided between the sides? That's the only question I have. Anyway, let's continue. Zгляd newspaper is reporting that, well, according to Business Insider, error in Ukrainian armed forces allowed Russian army to conduct successful offensive operations in Ocheretino direction. And well, Business Insider is talking about not just collapse of communication between 47th and 115th brigades of Kiev regime forces, but because there was issues with rotation. 47th brigade was ordered to move out, and 115th brigade should go in to the zero line. But according to rumors, 115th brigade refused to go on the front line, and 47th brigade was basically forced to, maintain its positions, and was decimated. And 115th brigade, by the way, they refuse also because that brigade is also decimated. And 67th brigade, by the way, is also decimated. Business Insider is not mentioning 67th brigade, but that brigade also refused to fight and run away. So, Business Insider may looking for excuses for a Kiev regime why they are losing ground on Avdiivka direction, but the reality is that no excuse gonna change the fact that Ukrainian armed forces are on the brink of collapse. It's just it's factual. I don't know how long it will take before we will see total collapse of Ukrainian armed forces all along the front line, but we clearly can observe this process on Avdiivka sector of the front line. Hardly anybody can doubt that, at least on Avdiivka sector, Kyiv regime forces, defense lines of Kyiv regime is definitely crumbling and collapsing. It's factual. Just in short time, like just in last 2, 3, 4 weeks time, Russian armed forces managed to establish control over the 250 or 350 square kilometers, by the way, in Avdiivka sector. You know, and no excuses from Western media can really justify this for Ukraine, you know, from Kyiv regimes to protect Kyiv regime. It's not happening. It's just, you know, Ukrainian armed forces are collapsing little by little. They are collapsing. And once this process will take, you know, will increase in scale, and when we will see collapse of Ukrainian defense lines all along the front line, that's going to be time when we should expect decisive Russian offensive operations, decisive Russian actions. Not before that. I know Western media outlets, Kyiv regime is actively pushing this narrative that Russia will start large-scale offensive operations in Kharkov direction, in this direction and that direction, in May, in June, July, August. No. No, man. It does not work that way. Only time when we should expect decisive Russian large-scale offensive operations is when it will become clear, absolutely clear, that Kyiv regime forces are collapsing all along the front line, not just on one sector or two sectors, but all along the front line. That's when we will see large-scale Russian offensive. If it will happen, if Ukrainian armed forces will collapse towards end of May, okay, that's time that we should expect then Russian large-scale offensive. If Kyiv regime forces will collapse in June or July, okay, then that will be the time when we should expect Russian large-scale offensive operations, because only then large-scale operation makes sense, because it will allow Russian forces to minimize casualty numbers and minimize damage on the ground. That's it. Anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, Pentagon is promising Kyiv regime that they will receive not just F-16s, not just planes, but also all the weapons, that they will need for these F-16s to be fully utilized in its maximum capacities. Okay, I mean, this is not really surprised. If you are transferring F-16s, then probably it is expected that you will provide those planes with the air-to-air missiles, with the bombs, with the air-to-ground missiles. Not really anything surprising. Although, by the way, I'm quite sure Russian fighter jets and Russian air defense systems are waiting for those F-16s, man. They are waiting for those F-16s. I mean, when I was younger, I used to dream about becoming a pilot. I even tried, by the way, to become a military pilot when I was 18. I love aviation, man, military aviation, and I can imagine excitement of Russian fighter jets. That, you know, they may receive opportunity to take down, first of all, to get engaged in air-to-air combat. That's for what they are training all their lives. And then, by the way, to take down these highly promoted F-16s. And it's not much, by the way, for Russian fighter jets, especially Su-30 or F-35, F-16s are no match, man. They have no chance. They just simply have no chance. But it's still good plane, by the way. I'm not mocking F-16. It's a good fourth generation fighter bomber. And in hands of experienced pilot, it can do a lot of stuff. That's for sure. But I believe in Russian fighter jets, man. That's how it is. Anyway, let's continue. RBK news agency is reporting that according to Wall Street Journal, well, NATO has assessed once again risks of Russian attack on NATO, and those risks are next to none. Understandably, by the way, NATO leadership, Western leadership, don't believe that there is any real risks that Russia will conduct invasion against any NATO member state, which is obvious. But still, by the way, Western propaganda outlets, Western ruling class, you know, they want to allocate more funds for military-industrial complex. They want to further militarize Western world, and therefore they will continue to demonize Russia. They will continue to scare people that Russia gonna attack today or tomorrow or day after. They're not gonna stop. While if sometimes, time to time, by the way, even, you know, on these Western propaganda outlets, some glimpse of real journalism may appear when they are asking critical questions. When that happens, it becomes clear that, wow, I mean, just look at this. All day, every day, we are hearing that Russia gonna attack us, and now this information that NATO don't really believe that Russia has any plans to attack. What the hell is going on then? But anyway, by the way, like tomorrow, very same Wall Street Journal will publish something else that Russia is going to attack anyway. Man, it's unfortunately propaganda is a strong tool to manipulate with the society. Man. It's just, it is what it is. TASS news agency reporting that armed forces of Poland give a warning to its citizens that close to Kaliningrad region there will be large movement of Polish armed forces, Polish military equipment and manpower, and people should not be wary, and you know, should know that this is just exercises, military exercises. Poland is deploying additional forces towards its borders with Kaliningrad region of the Russian Federation, towards Belarus, and by the way, Poland is constantly increasing number of its forces on the border with Ukraine also, and we all know why, don't we? Because when time comes and Ukraine will start undergoing full-scale disintegration, of course, Polish forces will be spearhead of the NATO forces when it comes to occupation of the Western Ukraine. And of course, Poland eventually will claim at least 70-80% of Western Ukraine. Anyway, let's continue. RBK news agency is reporting that Tucker Carlson, by the way, US journalist, had published an interview with the Russian philosopher Dugin. And I watched this interview. Interview is in English, by the way. So, I mean, if you did not see it, you can check on Tucker Carlson's channels on different platforms. And during this conversation between Alexander Dugin and Tucker Carlson, they spoke about this undeclared. This is my interpretation, by the way. Undeclared war between so-called liberals and the conservatives, between neoliberal ideology and their ideology of traditional values, ideology of preserving conservatism, by the way, preserving traditional values, family values. Well, it's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting conversation. And at some point, Dugin said that Western ruling class is hating Putin because, and I will say Russia, because they see Putin as a protector of traditional values, and not just any protector, but one that has nukes. And same can be said about Russia. Russia definitely is a protector of the traditional values. And you can not really mess with Russia that easy because of the nukes. And this is a kind of existential struggle between these two ideologies. Neoliberals, they want to destroy everything traditional, while conservatives want to maintain their identity, maintain family values, traditional values, religious values, and so on. So it's a ideological struggle, one may say, between inside the West also, because we cannot say that entire collective West is on a stance of those neoliberals. No, there is an internal struggle there, and many people are trying as much as possible to protect traditional values. But outside of the West, of course, Western ruling class sees Russia as a main threat for their this neoliberal ideology, to transfer humanity, God knows in what. Who knows what sick ideas those so-called elites in the West have, or ruling class of the West. But whatever the case, I mean, I can see logic in this. Well, they might hate Putin and Russia exactly because of this defense of traditional values. Although this is not only that, I believe in general, main goal for Western ruling class is to destroy all possible competitors to maintain their dominance. So they will go against, they're already acting, waging proxy war against Russia. They will definitely go against China, and they will definitely go against India, by the way. Because India has huge potential also. India and Global South in general. Because they see danger in Global South. So they will try as much as they can to destroy Global South, even if it will take a provoking nuclear war. That's how dangerous Western ruling class is for humanity, by the way. Anyway, let's continue. Prime Minister of Israel, by the way, Benjamin Netanyahu, made a statement yesterday that Israeli military operation in Rafah will take place regardless of decision of Hamas, accept or not accept Israel's initiative, peace initiative. So quite a dangerous statement from Netanyahu. Why you are proposing peace agreement then if you are planning to further escalate anyways? Very strange situation, by the way, with Netanyahu and his government, and most likely military operation will take place in Rafah, and it's gonna be I don't know, man. It's gonna be devastation, by the way, total devastation for civilians first of all. And the world is unable to stop this, unfortunately. World community is unable to stop this. RT is reporting that US Congress threatens ICC over Israel arrest warrants fell. Of course they're gonna threat, by the way. ICC is a tool, so-called International Criminal Court, is a tool in hands of Western ruling class. It was never meant to be a real court. And therefore, of course, Washington, or let's say Western ruling class, will not allow this institution to do anything against Netanyahu or his associates, at least until Western ruling class is using those people. If Western ruling class will lose interest in Netanyahu, that's a whole different story. He will be prosecuted 100%, even inside Israel. But as long as the Western ruling class has interest to keep Netanyahu in power and his ultra-radical associates, nothing will happen with them, and this international, so-called international criminal court will do nothing. And these days, by the way, there was reports, isn't it, that ICC may issue a warrant on Netanyahu. It's not happening, by the way. It's just not happening. ICC is and will be always tool in hands of Western ruling class. So I don't think anybody can trust ICC, by the way, ever. Взгляд newspaper. How long is this update, man? It's already 41 minutes. Okay. Взгляд newspaper is reporting that President of Georgia yesterday called for militaries not to listen to government. And later on, by the way, very same individual, Salome Zurabishvili, President of Georgia, called the Georgian police not to conduct not to disperse violent protesters on the streets of Tbilisi. So she is clearly acting on behalf of this destructive force that is trying to destabilize Georgia internally and then conduct regime change and use this republic as a tool against Russia and sacrifice it, basically. And well, many of you, of course, are informed that for the last 2 weeks at this point, there is constant protests in Georgia that are organized by Western-controlled or US-controlled so-called opposition, non-governmental organizations, and the Western-controlled media, so-called media in Georgia, and they have plenty of media outlets there, by the way. And all these protests are formally due to attempt of ruling party in Georgia to adopt a law about foreign agents, so that society will know which NGOs are receiving funds from which country, which politicians may are engaged in some dodgy activity with receiving funds from outside of country, and which so-called media outlets are funded from their outside. So Western ruling class, Washington, London, Brussels, they don't want Georgian society to be informed about this, and they are using now their assets in Georgia, the so-called opposition, NGOs, and the media, to destabilize situation. And well, I'm afraid if Washington is serious about regime change in Georgia, and if Washington plans to conduct regime change right now, then I'm afraid they have such a strong grip on Georgia, and they have so many assets, not just among opposition or NGOs or media, but also in the ruling party, I believe, and also among military personnel, high-ranking officers, in the military personnel, in police, internal ministry, interior ministry, and also in the secret services, that if Washington is determined to conduct regime change right now in Georgia and then use it against Russia, then protests will continue and at some point maybe some military units will take side of these protesters, maybe some police force will take side of these protesters, security forces, security service may take side of these so-called protesters, and that's a regime change, by the way. Washington has huge experience how to conduct regime change, and Georgia did undergo regime change operation in during the so-called Rose Revolution isn't it? In 2003 that was, I believe so. Washington definitely has tools in its hands to conduct regime change in Georgia, if they want to. Question is, will they do it now or in autumn, when parliamentary elections should take place? That's a question that I have when it comes to situation in Georgia. Will Washington authorize regime change and conduct regime change basically now or in autumn? Let's see. And yesterday, by the way, there was, as I said, protests are happening on daily basis of these Western-controlled groups in Tbilisi, capital of Georgia. And yesterday, these so-called Protestants get violent, and at some point, police, crowd-controlled police units get involved, and they disperse this aggressive crowd. And that was the time when Georgian President Zurabishvili start calling for police leadership to stop this crackdown on violent protesters. How crazy is that, man? Instead of calling people to come down and act responsibly without violent activity, she was calling police to stand down. This is crazy. This is treason, by the way. I mean, anyways, man, let's continue. And well, okay. In Norway, by the way, Norway is making statements, according to Financial Times, that Europe is getting too dependent on Russian fertilizers and should get rid of it also. Okay, Norway has huge interest, isn't it, in fertilizer business, because fertilizers are made from natural gas. It's natural gas involved in production of fertilizers, and Norway is rich with natural gas. And after destruction of Nord Stream pipelines, Norway benefited immensely, by the way. They are making tons of money by selling more and more gas in better prices to other countries of the Europe. And well, they see opportunity here that they can become monopoly on in terms of fertilizers also, and they are calling now EU to get rid of Russian fertilizers, and they will do it, by the way. Most likely Europe will ban Russian fertilizers, maybe not in 14th sanctions package, but in 15th, 16th, 17th, sometime in the future, they will probably ban imports of Russian fertilizers by European farmers. And well, Norwegian companies will benefit once again hugely on that. As some say, it's nothing personal, it's just business, by the way. Norway is using any opportunity it gets, and well, I cannot blame them. They want to make more money, and they are in a position to do so. As long as they are not destroying factories in Russia, by the way. And when it comes to Nord Stream pipelines, Norway unfortunately was engaged in this terrorist attack, in this act of international terrorists, together with the US. And that's a big deal. According to many of you, I remember, I believe, that according to Seymour Hersh's report, US conducted this operation, this US Secret Services, US militaries conducted this act of international terrorism on Nord Stream pipelines, but Norway was also involved. And Norway benefited, as I said, immensely by selling more gas for much better price for Norway. And now they want to do the same with the fertilizers. Let's hope they're not gonna destroy They're not gonna go full crazy mode and target Russian companies that are producing fertilizers, because I mean, anyway, RT is reporting that China vows retaliation against US bullying. Beijing has stated that legislation recently enacted by Washington gravely infringes on its sovereignty. Beijing has, I mean, okay, too much talk, by the way, too much talk. We all understand, and Beijing understands also, that until BRICS will come up with alternative financial and banking system, they can do nothing against a Western ruling class. They literally can do nothing. That's all. And there is no need in these strong statements here and there. I mean, there is no need in it. If you want to deal with the issues, and there is an issue, world is facing issues that Western ruling class has weaponized Western financial and banking system, Western currencies. It's factual. So just do something about it. China, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, other members of the BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the rest of the world, just do something about it. Enough talk. Enough talk. Just do something, for God's sake. How difficult it is to create alternative financial and banking system. Is that difficult? To organize transfers from bank to bank? I don't think it's that difficult. It is difficult to come up with a currency, alternative world reserve currency. No, it's not difficult, for God's sake. Just do it. It's too much talk, man. We will not allow this and we will not allow that. Come on now. Collective Westman will continue, Western ruling class will continue to bully everybody in this world until they have such opportunity. And they will have this opportunity until there is no alternative financial and banking system in this world and alternative reserve currency. It's just too obvious. And therefore, I'm no longer willing to take seriously all these strong statements from BRICS member states and other countries in the world that they will not allow this. And what you gonna do, man? U.S. Treasury can ban any bank in this world, any country, to operate with dollars. That's all. I mean, they can do it, and they are doing it. Brussels can do the same with the euro. London can do it with the pound. They can cut off any financial institution from SWIFT anytime they want, just like that. And just statements from BRICS member states or other countries worldwide are not enough. Real steps have to be made. And I'm getting a little frustrated because I don't think it's that difficult, for God's sake. I really don't. Who can say that Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, new members of the BRICS have no programmers, not good enough programmers to write the code to create an alternative system, alternative to the SWIFT? Come on now. Anyway, man, maybe there is some internal struggle. Maybe China wants to be in charge of whatever alternative system will be made. And if that's the case, then I can understand that Russia will say, you know what, I mean, with all due respect, but why we have to be in charge? Let's make it, more just system. India will say the same. And maybe there is some internal struggle, by the way, in BRICS. I don't know. But it is just too obvious that these alternatives have to be created. Otherwise, more these kind of statements BRICS member states will make that they will not allow this and that, less and less seriously they will be taken by the rest of the world. Because you can do nothing. Until you have your alternative financial and banking system, you can basically do nothing. Because you are still dependent on the Western one. It's that simple. Anyway, man, I will end this video. Now, I hope during this summit, big summit in Kazan, we will hear some serious information about concrete steps that have been taken by BRICS to create alternative financial and banking system. Man. Enough talk. Just, you know, real action is needed. Real steps, real achievements. Anyway, I will end this update. Now, hopefully you will find this video informative and interesting, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. And if you like this channel, if you find it interesting, informative, and if you think that this channel deserves to exist, please consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And before I go, let me remind you that this evening, 9 o'clock Moscow time, I will have a live stream on YouTube channel. And please join the conversation if you will have a time. Bye for now.